Hello everyone, and welcome to the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad in Wyoming. I'm Mark Pruitt, Powder River, Wyoming station agent. Today is August 3rd, 2021, and this is layout update number 21. I thought this month was going to be another pretty short update because for most of the month I didn't get a whole lot accomplished. I'll show you why in just a minute. But I got up a full head of steam the last week of the month, and I think I got quite a bit accomplished, especially considering that it was only about a week's worth of effort. So hey, let's go take a look and see what the layout looks like now. First, here's what sucked out so much of my modeling time this month. I've been building a library in the part of the basement on the opposite side of the stairs from the train room. This is the first of two bookcases. This one took about 4 months to build and finish. The second bookcase, on the opposite side of the room from the first, was built and primed in about 3 weeks. Unfortunately, building that fast used up most of my modeling time during most of July. I'm slowing down now though, and will take a couple of weeks to apply the finishing touches, including paint. So more time for modeling in August. Where did we leave off with the last update? Well, for starters, I just finished ballasting the main yard throat. But before I could move on towards finishing the basic scenery in the engine terminal, I had to add the two still missing tracks. Those tracks are the second turntable lead that runs through the coaling tower, and the commodities track that delivers coal and sand and picks up ashes. Here I've applied the caulk for the first section of flex track for the second turntable lead. And here's that piece of track laid through the coaling tower. Once the entire lead was in place, I weighted it down in my usual manner. I have about 24 cans of soda in the train room tagged for just this kind of surface. Some of it's a few years old though, so I wouldn't try to drink it. Here's a view across the turntable and onto the new lead from about an engineer's elevation above the tracks. And a loco on the turntable about to head out down the new lead. The commodities track, I'm not sure what it's called, that's just my name for it, is elevated, so I built a ramp out of pink foam. Once again, the soda can train is pressed into service while the caulk is drying. And that track is now in place, with a couple of test cars shoved through to check clearances. Here we're sighting down the track towards the engine terminal, looking at the new turnout and tracks to check the alignment. Everything runs over the new tracks just fine. Now that the last tracks in Casper Yard are finally in place, it's time to paint the tracks on the west end of the yard. Here I've masked off the turntable pit and shrouded the roundhouse in paper towels to protect from the overspray. I shrouded the coaling tower in a similar manner. Everything else was simply moved out of the area. I employed a rattle can of brown flat spray paint to paint all the tracks in the area. I coated the tops of the rails with chapstick prior to painting, so the rail heads cleaned up very easily, even though I didn't clean them for a couple of days. The brown paint was applied on July 8th. A couple days later, I went back and dusted flat black spray paint over the engine terminal tracks to simulate the soot and grime that would have been found there, and added a much heavier layer to the oil tank loading tracks where constant oil spills would have turned the ground black back in the 1930s and 40s. And that was it for well over a week. The bookcase took almost all my time for most of the rest of the month. On July 19th, I did find a half hour or so to tape all the tracks in preparation for plastering. Finally, on July 27th, the bookcases were primed and I took a break from them. I actually found time to apply plaster to the area behind the engine terminal, including around the standard oil tracks. If you look close in this shot, you can see where I darkened the plaster a bit right around the two oil loading tracks. It looked a lot darker when it was wet, but the plaster lightens significantly as it dries. On August 1st, it was finally time to add dirt to the area. Well, this might get a bit boring, so let's speed it up a bit. After sifting dirt over an area, I thoroughly wet it with plain water. I go on to wet the plaster in the next area. Then add dirt there as well. I did everything behind the engine terminal. Around the oil loading tracks, I sprinkled a generous amount of black tempera powder to darken the ground. It's still wet in this picture. Here it is from the other direction after the application has mostly dried. As I detail the area, this will get blackish washes of paint of varying thicknesses, so should look properly polluted in the future. At the July update, Rocky Mountain drilling was sitting on the layout looking like this. And so it sat almost all month long. I ordered and received what I thought was everything I needed to install lighting, only to realize late in July that I forgot to order the very fine wire for the LEDs. So on July 28th, off went another order to engineering for wire. Hopefully that will be here soon. But I did make a little progress. I applied initial weathering to the platforms and attached them to the base of the structure. Here's the structure on its base on the workbench, and here it's sitting on the layout with some additional weathering to the platforms. Now I'm at a complete standstill until I can complete the lighting. Hopefully I'll at least get started on that this month. Shifting gears a bit, this is what my sanding station looked like until the end of July. My bench sander is sitting on a TV stand. Too low and wobbled a bit, but it was better than nothing. In late July, I found this old stereo stand at a Salvation Army thrift store for $2.50. It was the right height, and with a new top would make a fine stand for the sander. Using some scrap 3/4-inch oak plywood from the bookcases, plus a few scraps of 1x2 oak from the bookcase face frames, in about 15 minutes the stand was sporting its new top. So now my sanding station looks like this. What a great improvement over the old stand. What else happened in the last few days? Oh yes, at the end of June I was trying to put together the backdrop for Casper. That effort continued. When I wasn't working on the bookcase, I was at the computer trying to build a passable panorama of Casper Mountain and the immediately adjacent hills. I probably spent 30 or 40 hours combining photos in a program called Affinity Photo. Finally, on July 19th, I had it right. I took the file to FedEx and had them printed out, just like I had with the area between Riverton and Hudson on the Chicago and Northwestern line several months ago. On July 20th, I picked up the backdrop. It stayed rolled up in its bag until, you guessed it, the last couple days of July. On July 30th, I refreshed the sky color on the Casper skyboard. It was scratched and dirty from removing it from the New Jersey layout, transporting it across country, and reinstalling it on the Casper layout. Plus, I had to repair several of the seams where it had started to come apart. We'll just run really fast here for a few seconds. On August 1st, I unrolled the backdrop and rough trimmed the first of the 3 sections. I taped it up to the skyboard to get the sense of it. It seems passable, doesn't it? There are 1 or 2 obvious transitions between photos that I couldn't fully eliminate, but a well-placed structure will hide those. Also on July 31st, I started putting together the Casper fascia. Here's the first 8-foot piece temporarily installed. Fascia along here is 9 inches tall. By August 1st, I had the second sheet of fascia installed. After I mark and cut out for throttle plugins, I'll remove the fascia and paint it the same bronze green as the one on the C&W line above Casper. On August 1st and 2nd, I close trimmed the second, or center, section of the Casper backdrop. This is a bit painstaking, and it takes over an hour to trim each roughly 11-foot long section. But I got that section done on August 2nd and taped it up to see how it looked. I think this will work out just fine. Later this week or early next week, Kurt, one of my friends from the local club, will come over to help me permanently install the whole thing. Oh, and the Mikado in the right foreground of this photo was lightly weathered for me by another club member and arrived back on the layout just a couple days ago. Finally, on August 1st, I published episode 6 of Building Casper. This one covers track laying in the classification area. Be sure to check it out. And that, as they say, is that. For having such a dearth of modeling time through most of July, I did okay. In August, I should make progress on Rocky Mountain drilling, get the Casper backdrop final installed, and at the very least, finish ballasting behind the engine terminal. Following the ballasting, if things go really well, I might even get Casper moved back into its permanent location in the corner. That's kind of iffy though, because I still have to finish some scenery on the CNW above Casper in the corner. After that, I am more than ready to begin pushing the mainline both directions out of Casper. Be sure to tune in to see how far I actually get. And feel free to comment down below. I really enjoy reading your ideas and thoughts. They motivate me. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next month.